Are we in the last days? Like many of you, I wonder, are we in the last days? People respond to a pandemic in very human ways. Usually, people acknowledge the verifiable events, and then immediately after that, fierce arguments break out as to the real meaning of these events. Then the stark realities of the pandemic become unsettling for many people. Reactions include declaring that huge conspiracies are at work, blaming supposedly deliberate plots by China, the CIA, or Israel's Mossad for the spread of the virus. Others simply deny that the pandemic is even a problem and assert that the whole thing is a manipulative ruse by politicians attempting to usher in a new world order. So, where is God in all of this? Only an omniscient God knows exactly how many people will be touched by this virus and to what extent. Only God knows where the virus will end. The biblical perspective is stunningly reflected in the rabbinic prayer Unatana Tokef, which declares that God is both good and sovereign in all these events. And I quote, "And you shall apportion the destinies of all your creatures and inscribe their verdict. How many will pass from the earth, and how many will be created? Who will live and who will die? Who will die after a long life, and who before his time? Who by water and who by fire? Who by sword and who by beast? Who by famine and who by thirst? Who by upheaval and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning?" End quote. It's worth remembering the reality that God has appointed a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness by the man whom he has ordained, Acts 17:31. In light of that, we ruefully confess, and I quote, "If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, O Lord, who could stand? But with you there is forgiveness, so that you might be feared." Psalm 130, verse 4. Casting the first stone. When bad things happen, we want to know why. Who is guilty? Against whom do we point the finger? Two thoughts are here. Shiite Iraqi Islamic scholar Hadi al-Madarisi, who's based in Qom, Iran, said on February 28, 2020, that the spread of coronavirus is undoubtedly an act of Allah's divine punishment against China for their disrespect towards Muslims and Islam. And I quote, "It is obvious that the spread of this virus is an act of Allah. How do we know this? The spread of the coronavirus began in China, an ancient and vast country, the population of which makes up 1/7 of humanity. The authorities in that country laid siege to more than 1 million Muslims. Allah sent a disease upon them, and this disease laid siege to 40 million Chinese. And there you have it. This disease spread, and it has scared humanity in its entirety." End quote. Now, in early March, sources reported that Hadi al-Madarisi had also contracted the coronavirus. The Most High raised the issue of individual responsibility in Luke 13, verses 1 through 5. And I quote, "Do you suppose that these Galileans were greater sinners than all other Galileans because they suffered this fate? I tell you, no." End quote. Yeshua tells us that we need to avoid haste in ascribing specific guilt to people who suffer tragedies. The fact is that all of us have fallen short of the glory of God, and none of us is righteous. And you can see that in Psalm 14, verses 1 through 3. And all of us are in need of repentance. The accurate reason for tragedies and judgments may not be available to us in the heat of the moment. God's wake-up weapons of discipline. Though many believers are not aware of it, the Bible does not mince words regarding God's ability to bring judgment to a nation or even to an entire planet. Think of Noah. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and John the Revelator refer to 4 weapons in the Lord's hands: famine, wild beasts, the sword of war, and plagues, Revelation 6:8, that he has used, does use, and will use to speak to a deaf and rebellious world. A pandemic touches all of the nations of this world, whether it is specific sins that are the fulcrum or simply the general attitude of a world that ignores God, his values and guidelines. We may not clearly know at this point. However, there is no question that, like King David in 2 Samuel 24, we need to cry out to the God of Israel and ask him to stay his hand, grant repentance, and hold the plague back. That means we need to be worshiping, fam. We need to be praying, fam. We need to be bowed down in prayer. The voice of King David echoes down through the pages of history to us, and it should be ours as well. As 70,000 Jewish men, women, and children were perishing, he cried out to the Lord and asked, "But these sheep, what have they done?" 2 Samuel 24, verses 15 through 17. So how should we respond? Well, the prophet Isaiah tells us that people respond to God's judgments in 2 diametrically opposed ways. And I quote, "For when the earth experiences your judgments, the inhabitants of the world learn righteousness. Though the wicked is shown favor, he does not learn righteousness." Isaiah 26, verses 9 through 10. So there will be some wicked who will survive this, and there will be those who are good who will not survive, because the Lord does not show any favor among men. The present pandemic challenges us to seek the face of God, to learn righteousness, and to call out to him for international mercy. Pray for God to have mercy on your nation and to reveal the areas of needful repentance. Pray for the saving of many lives and the healing of many who are sick. Pray for the gifts of healing to increase on the earth through praying believers. Lord, right now, I want to pray for the world. I want to pray for those who are sick. I want to pray for those who will become sick. I want to pray for those who are dying, Lord, that they may see you and turn to you in their final moments, Lord. I ask, Lord, that you will have mercy. Lord, I thank you for all the blessings that I have received, Lord. I thank you for the mercies in my life. Lord, I thank you for those who hear this message and will be obedient to your word and call out to you and pray. Lord, I thank you and I bless you. In the mighty name of Yeshua.